I want to welcome everybody and those out on the World Wide Web. My name is Nathan. I'm the Benefits. Can you hear me? Benefits and Wellness Program Manager. Today we're going to be talking and discussing a little bit about getting a leg up on stress. So it's going to be a lot of different tidbits, tools, and really points that you're going to be able to utilize in your everyday life. So with that, we're going to go ahead and let Isabel Alfonsin-Vittoria, she's going to handle our presentation today. So she is the Office of Employee Assistance Director. She handles a lot of the aspects in regards to mindfulness, meditation, and anything that you can possibly think of that is reducing stress related. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and welcome Isabel Alfonsin-Vittoria. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Sorry for the delay. Literally, we had technical difficulties, and we could not get the presentation up, and we couldn't get it to work properly. It feels a little bit like I did when I woke up this morning. I was not working properly. I actually am ill. I'm sick. I have a cold, and I'm trying to break through a fever. So normally I greet you, and I like to hug people I know and shake hands, and today you shouldn't get anywhere near me. But I didn't want to cancel because this is very important. And it's a shame because we all have such a difficult time, right? Breaking away from what we do to come, that there were so many more people signed up that are actually in the room. But I'm happy that those of you that did it got here. So I can't guarantee that everything is going to work appropriately. I'm going to try to do the best I can. It seems that there are two slides that are not launching the way that they should. And unfortunately, one of them is actually a meditation practice that I would have wanted to do with you, but it doesn't look like it's working. And then there are two movies that I wanted to show you simultaneously, and I don't know that they're going to work either. But I can talk around and get the point across of why they were in the slide. So again, welcome. I want to thank Nathan, first of all, for inviting me. I am very privileged to co-chair the Wellness Committee with him since its inception. And this workshop was actually created specifically for the participants of the wellness journey, as well as those of you that might not be necessarily participating in that endeavor, but are nonetheless looking for ways to improve the quality of your life and trying to find ways to impact stress. For those of you that know me or have been to any other of my stress presentations, this is different. This has been influenced primarily by a wonderful group of people that I had the opportunity to meet. Last month, I went to my industry conference and met with some of the lovely people at Stanford, and I was able to really get very close to the work that is being done there. And so you're going to be getting a lot of information that I want to give credit to Stanford University and the Mind and Body Lab staff there, because they graciously shared this information with me, and I built the presentation around that for all of you. So the agenda today is to go over a few things. The definition of stress, which I'm sure you probably know better than I, but at least the scientific definition, the relationship of our mind in relation to stress, mastering stress, and what I'm introducing, which is completely new, the concept of choosing mindsets. I'm going to offer you a roadmap, a 4-step roadmap, and it will be a lot of information. So I want to make sure that I do justice to that and that I pace it correctly, and that if there's anything that you wanted to learn deeper, can't remember, want to talk more about, that you'll call me and you can come by and we can talk, or I can freely share the presentation with you. But it's new content, so it might be difficult to track all of it. I'm going to share with you some of the scientific evidence that backs up this concept, and hopefully land on what I really want to talk about today, which is that mindset matters. And I'm going to talk to you about two things that I call anchors and signals. And last but not least, I hope to impart a message that you can take with you about how to live more mindfully and more meaningfully. So the definition of stress is quite simple, and it's manifested in many different ways for all of us. But for the most part, stress is the struggle with what is, especially with if what is not what you want. Does that make sense? This morning, and I was already coming down ill with this for days, when I awakened, I realized I was much more ill than I thought. And that is not what I wanted. So I immediately thought, oh, how appropriate, how synchronistic. I am feeling stress. My body does not want to function the way that I need it to. It's not what I want. But clearly I had a choice to make, right? We could cancel. It could have happened. Or I could choose a different mindset. And that's what I did. And I'll tell you how I did it. So as I said, stress presents in ourselves, in our lives in different ways, rather. And there are many different triggers. It could be illness. It could be work related. It could be family related. It could be child rearing. It could be financial. It could be a romantic issue. It could be a sibling issue. It could be familial. It could have many different sources. For some people right now, there's so much stress in their lives due to legal changes, changes in healthcare, so many things that are affecting our lives that it's causing undue stress. In fact, and it's not in my slide presentation, the most recent report that came out from the American Psychological Association says that from the sample population that participated in their survey, 59% of Americans are saying that they feel more stressed in their lives than ever before, particularly in relation to the state of our nation and global problems caused by relations that we have internationally with other countries. 59%. That is a very high number. It's alarming. So many different triggers, and some of them can be positive, some of them can be negative. The easiest example of positive might be getting married. Well, I'm getting married. How positive? Except there's the pressure of planning a wedding or having a baby. These are good things, but they cause pressure. Then there's negative things like finding out that your loved one is ill or that your marriage isn't working and that you might have to consider other options. So some of the strains that we feel, they can be perceived or they can be real. In my case, if I use myself as an example this morning, it was very real. I had 101 degree fever. So that was very real. It was in the thermostat. But I said, you know what? I am going to beat this thing, mind over matter. Perceptions can be, I walked in the room and someone looked at me a little bit longer than I may have felt comfortable. And I may have wondered if something was wrong with my appearance. But maybe they were just admiring my necklace. So perception. Some pressures are short-lived, meaning they're temporary. They come and they go, like the report that's due, taking your child to daycare on time before getting to work. Those are not severe, long-standing issues. Some are, like having someone who is ill and maybe in need of hospice. That's a long-term stressor. Some of the changes can be minor. Like I said, you come into work and you find out that your office has been relocated and you're no longer going to be where you are, but that's not as significant as maybe finding out that your department is being restructured and now you're no longer a part of the unit that you were with. That's a little bit more significant. And the most important thing is that stress touches every part of you. It touches your personal life, and here at FIU it touches your occupational life, and that's one of the reasons why in our wellness program we talk a lot about the importance of managing stress. I think we probably know by now that stress cannot be eliminated. If anyone found the way to do that, they would be very wealthy, right? That and aging, if anyone could stop aging. But the fact is, we don't have a solution. So we must explore alternatives for coping better. And stress can be reduced. It really can be reduced because there are two very important reasons why we should do that. One, because we don't want to get sick. And there are many studies that have proven that stress can make us ill, and I'll share those with you. But more importantly, because you want to live a good life. Some of us call it happiness, but I'm just going to say life quality. Life quality is important. Waking up and feeling good about your day is important. So the thing about stress is that there's not a one-size-fits-all. Many people come to the Office of Employee Assistance with the presenting issue of stress, but no two stories are alike. Every single person perceives the stress differently and has different coping mechanisms, have tried different things and seen different results. So know that you are unique and you should be looking for ways that help you, that make sense for you in your life, and that if it worked for her, it may not work for you. But there are times when we can share victories. There are things that I do that I've passed on to other people, and other things that people have passed on to me that have been helpful. See, the thing with our mind is that our mind is quite imperfect. Can you hear me? Our mind goes between two primary modes. It goes from the external, when it's focused on the world around, versus when it's internal. And when we are thinking our own thoughts, I call that the wandering mind. That's when we're thinking about what we're going to have for lunch, and where we're going to go on vacation, and oh my God, but what are we going to do on, the day after Thanksgiving? And we're not really focused. We are wandering. We leave our cars when we arrive at the university. We forget where we parked them. We go looking for them. We don't remember where they were. Our mind was wandering. That's the default mode. The mode that I want to talk more about, and that I hope that I can do the exercise if it deploys, is a focused mode. That is where you intentionally focus on something from beginning to end and can experience not just the pleasure of what you were doing, but relaxation. For some people, that might be knitting, gardening, cooking, walking, meditating. There are many different ways. Now there's a lot of mindful coloring. I don't know if any of you are doing mindful coloring, but I have a mindful coloring calendar. And in between clients and in between answering the phones and responding to emails, I like to color in my mindful calendar to help me to focus my wandering brain. Because my brain, like yours, can be restless. It can go all over the place. And most often, our brain is looking for what's going to threaten us, what's going to potentially be a trap, what's a problem. It's always looking to defend itself. Or it's looking to please itself. Like when you're walking in the mall and you really were there because you had to, I don't know, go repair your watch. And you were going to the watch repair, but as you were walking to the watch repair, you look at the window and you see this really nice handbag at the Michael Kors store. And you were not supposed to be going to that store. You were really only going there to repair your watch. Pleasure. The novel. Sometimes, we're in the midst of doing whatever it is that we're doing that is routine, but something interesting comes along, our brain wanders off and goes, what's that pretty, bright, shiny new thing? So the other problem with our brain is that it gets fatigued. In the United States, we have the pleasure of calling something choice fatigue. Anyone know what choice fatigue is here in the United States? I could define it very easily, but I'd like to know if you know. Yes. Too many options. I love you. You're great. Shopping online. Yeah. That could give you choice fatigue, right? You could have it this way. You could have it that way. It could be shipped. It could be sent. You could pick it up. I call choice fatigue Cheesecake Factory menu. Right? You go to a meal, you want to talk to a friend, you open the menu and it's 11 pages and there's 155 items. Who needs all that? Well, we believe we need all that. We don't. The problem also with our brain is that it's irrational. Sometimes we believe what we think and it's very short-term focused and we let go of holding on to things. That's why we start a lot of things and we don't really finish them. Because the brain likes to wonder. So here's the data that I was saying that I was going to share with you. This came from the Harvard Mental Health Letter in 2016, and it states that prolonged stress, which is the kind of stress that is harmful, causes high blood pressure, the formation of artery clogging deposits, which can cause heart attacks, brain changes that may contribute to anxiety, depression, and obesity. And now the newest research is showing that it's also speeding up the aging process. So stress, prolonged stress, can be detrimental. There is eustress, E-U-S-T-R-E-S-S, which is the normal, healthy, motivational stress, like deciding that you want to go back to school. And some of the stressors that it's going to cause if you go to graduate school, or if you pursue a doctorate, or if you go in and you put your hat in for a promotion. It's stress, but it's motivational stress. It's not stress that it's meant to be destructive. So what I want to talk about today, beyond what we already know, is how to work with our thoughts. Our thoughts are really the cornerstone of our feelings. A lot of people have that inverted. A lot of people think that they think according to how they feel. And it's really the other way around. our thoughts determine our feelings. So Dr. William James, one of the first psychologists of the 16th century, said, the greatest weapon, and this is the 16th century, guys, and now we're in the 21st century, and we are still learning the same thing, which is the greatest weapon against stress is our ability to choose one thought over another. Now, some people say to me, that's really hard. Like, what do you mean one thought over the other? Well, I'm going to talk about that. That's choice. So this is the roadmap that we're going to go through. And it includes 4 different things. An awareness practice, which I hope we can do. I hope it deploys. Which is a 3-minute breathing exercise. We're going to talk about what is mindset. We're going to talk about the power of mindset. And we're also going to talk about how to shift mindset. And that's the power to choose one thought over another. I'm going to call that shifting. Okay? So you're here, but you want to be there.
Mindful breathing. Close your eyes and rest your hands on your knees. Bring your attention to the touch of your body on your seat. Feel the weight of your body on your chair or cushion. Make sure that your back is straight and that you're comfortable. Take a few deep breaths. While you're breathing deeply, relax your shoulders, your stomach muscles, the muscles in your face, your hands, and your legs. Let go of all the tightness in your body. Now bring your attention back to your breath. Notice what it feels like as it enters through your nose, goes down through your throat, filling your lungs, and back out through your nose. Notice your stomach and chest rise and fall each time you breathe in and each time you breathe out. And just allow your breathing to be natural and relaxed. Now bring your attention to the feeling of your breath in your nose. Feel your breath as it comes in and goes out. Just focus on this sensation, paying attention to each time you breathe in and each time you breathe out. As you inhale, maybe your breath feels cool. And as you exhale, maybe it feels a little warmer. When your mind wanders, or if you become distracted, just notice what's going on in your head, and then gently bring your attention back to your breath, going in and out. Focus on the feeling of your breath and allow thoughts and feelings to come and go in the background. Now gently bring your attention back to the touch of your body on your seat and open your eyes.
Thank you. Nathan was ready to come to the rescue. I knew that it was having a difficult time. The point of taking that 3-minute, it was 3 minutes. Did it feel like 3 minutes? Felt like a blink of an eye, right? If you ever come to the 3-part workshop for mindfulness in December, you'll learn that meditation, when you practice it routinely, feels faster and faster the more you do it. That was 3 minutes. But the reason that I took the time for us to stop is because before we make any decision about what we're going to do with our brain, we must be aware. And awareness reminds us that we are alive. The breath is the reminder that we are alive and we can make different choices. So anytime that you're going to make a big decision or you're going through a difficult time, I urge you, take a breath. Just take one breath. I take 3 because that's what I need. I know me and I know that one breath is not enough. But one breath to remind you that you're here, present, able to make better decisions. So now we're going to turn it over to what is mindset. Mindset, the definition, a lens or frame of mind which orients an individual to a particular set of associations and expectations. This is actually a scientific definition of mindset. This was discovered by Dr. Carol Dweck, who was a pioneer at Stanford with the concept of mindset. So this was her definition of her work, which encompasses, I want to say now, about 17 years of looking at the mindset, the frame. So imagine if the world that you saw was through the lens of the eyeglasses that you wear, but that if you were to put on a different pair of lenses, things would look different, right? So Carol Dweck wrote this book called Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, and it was a tremendous hit. And she is now a world-renowned mindset expert. She talks all over the world on this topic. And frankly, if you can spare a few dollars, or if you want to go check it out at the library, this is a book worth reading. It is. But you're stealing the thunder. You're stealing. But I know that you know what I speak of. So, ta-da, right? I'm going to share with you 4 pieces of scientific evidence because I like to give you some backing as to why I'm proposing an approach that is different. Most people look at stress as how do you control it? How do you get rid of it? How do you eliminate it? I don't want it. But we admitted that we can't do that. So if we cannot get rid of it, then one way to better cope is to find ways to deal with the way we think about it. So in this study, Carol Dweck and her team, and she has done subsequent studies. They're all quoted at the bottom. Everything is sourced. And if anyone needs a complete list of all the references, I have it. I also have a suggested reading list, which I'm going to send to all of you that are here today so that you can have it in case you want to read a little bit more obsessively like I do. So there's 2 mindsets, the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And what we learn is that with the fixed mindset, which is static, that's the assumption that nothing is going to change. In other words, things are going to stay the same way. There's a particular way that people that are that way think. People who have that notion that something is fixed, predetermined, unable to change, they look at the world in a different way. They think that it leads to the desire to look smart and therefore a tendency to avoid challenges, give up easily due to obstacles, see efforts as fruitless, ignore useful feedback, and be threatened by other people's success. Because when you think about it, they call it static. I would use the layman's term narrow-minded. Okay? So to depict that, I show you this image. So if that will stay with you, it's a black and white, and this is intelligence is fixed. But we learned that it is not fixed. There is a growth mindset, and the growth mindset, which is critical for teaching and critical for living, is to know that there are ways to learn and add to your repertoire of knowledge. This mindset leads to learn and therefore a tendency to embrace challenges, persist despite obstacles, see effort as a path to mastery, learn from criticism, and be inspired by others' success instead of threatened. So maybe I'm a very visual person. I made this a colorful brain to illustrate for you the difference between intelligence when it's malleable and intelligence when it's fixed. What was important about her studies is that we believed before her work that there were some things that couldn't be changed. However, mindset explains why just the brain as it is, and the talents that we have don't equal success. There are very many bright people who are very talented who don't succeed. And we have other individuals that do not have as high an IQ and are not as skilled, but do succeed. And you have to ask yourself, what is that about? Because if you're going to base it on IQ alone, they should have made it. But we're learning now through EQ, which is the work of Daniel Goleman, that how we perceive, how we relate to the world can change the way that we perform. So this was a very important study. This one's a little bit different. This one is a little bit fun, and some of you may have heard of it before. I know that Nathan has talked about this before, but this was the work of some of the people at Stanford that I met with. Dr. Aaliyah Crum is from Stanford, and Dr. Ellen Langer is from Harvard, and they both decided that they wanted to put mindset to the test. So they did a mindset exercise with employees that were in the housekeeping business. And for one team, and these are actual photos of the study participants. These are real photos that were given to me by the Stanford team. So you're looking at something that is real. One team was given no intervention. So these were 84 housekeepers across 7 different hotels. And they were interviewed, invited to participate. They all agreed to participate, and they were divided into 2 groups. The first group was defined as work is work. They were asked, how did they perceive what they did every day? And they said, this is work. And the other half categorized it as exercise. Why? Well, they were asked if the activities that they performed on a day-to-day basis were activities of physical, of a physical nature that would be conducive to good health. And the group that believed that work was work didn't see their work as exercise, but the other group did. So this is actually what was given to half of the group. So half of the group was given this flyer, and they were also given a 15-minute presentation. So the 84 were divided into 2 groups of 42. Half of the 42 that believed that their work was work, they shared nothing with them. They just took their body measurements. They took their blood pressure, they took their weight, their body mass, their body fat, and all of that was annotated. The other 42 were given this flyer, and this literally was the flyer that was given to them. And so it said, changing linens for 15 minutes burns 40 calories. Vacuuming for 15 minutes burns 50 calories. Cleaning bathrooms for 15 minutes burns 60 calories. When I read this, I thought I should really be thin, considering how much I do at my home. But the lesson learned was that 4 weeks later, when these women were tested, and by the way, they were all female, coincidentally, they were just a population that they reached and agreed to participate. The 4 weeks had gone by. They were asked, have you done anything different? Either group. Have you joined the gym? Have you taken more hours of work? Have you done anything different? And both groups said, for the most part, that they had done nothing different, which meant there was no intervention. No intervention. Was there a change? What do you think? What do you think? Interestingly enough, there were some very positive and interesting changes that really were difficult to explain because no intervention had actually been done. This is what I call the placebo effect. So just thinking that the behavior that they were doing was considered exercise by the Surgeon General caused them and their bodies to physiologically respond differently than the other group. So just the thought, mindset, frame, lens, that was the only thing they did. The BP, the systolic, had dropped for most of the women. There was a loss in body weight. There was improved quality of life and satisfaction at work. And you have to say, wow, that's pretty powerful, considering that nothing was done. This one is a little cute. I hope you like it. This was also done by Dr. Crum. She worked with a group of other psychologists. This came out a little bit later. I think she wanted to put it to test again. One was about, the well-being. She was testing physiology. So there were two groups. One group of people was given a shake to drink, and this was the label. And this is actually the label that was on the bottle. And it was called Sensi Shake. And the tagline is guilt-free satisfaction. The nutritional facts are accurate. That was exactly what was in the bottle. And you'll notice the coloring and how positive and pretty it is, right? And so that group received that one. The other group received this label. Same shake. You should know this. They did not know this. Same contents were in both bottles. The only thing different was the label. If you look at the nutritional facts, they are identical. So nothing was different in either shake, except for the perception. When you look at the brown one, it says indulgence, decadence you deserve. So more of a guilty pleasure, right? So one thought it was sensible, and the other one thought it was indulgent. What do you think happened? Anyone want to take a guess? What do you think? What was that again? Well, the interesting thing is, does anyone know what ghrelin is? What's ghrelin? That is correct. It is the hunger hormone, right? It's what makes you feel like you want to eat, and when you eat, it gets satiated, right? Kind of goes away. It's not just the that you hear, but it's literally the body craving nutrition, right? Well, that's what they were measuring. They measured the ghrelin level for both groups and participants, and this is what they found. Interestingly enough, the group that had the Sensi shake had not been satiated. They thought they had had something nutritious and healthy, and therefore it was not something that would be filling. They thought it was something light and something that would not be as heavy as the people that had the indulgent drink. Now, the people who had the indulgent shake, look at how many times more their ghrelin was affected, 3 times as more, and it was just the thought, because the contents were identical. Yes, they thought they were getting something decadent. Doesn't decadent sound so much more than sensible? But it's a mindset, right? It's what they thought. So it obviously tells us, same milkshake, 2 different labels can change everything. Your outlook, just what you think. Just like the housekeepers thought this was exercise, the other ones did not. Just like the students that saw possibility versus the students that did not. So then they did a different study. This was by Dr. Levy, and this was at Yale. And the study that she was interested in was sort of duplicating the work that some of the other colleagues were doing across the country, but looking at it a different construct, the construct of aging. Aging is a delicate matter, right? Not to be overlooked, an important part of the lifespan, but certainly a challenging one. And so they broke the group into 2, and based on the way that they responded to questionnaires, they were able to discern which of the participants felt and looked at their life through the lens of aging is a negative thing, and separated the others, and the perceptions that the other group had was that aging is actually a positive thing. So 2 different mindsets, same construct, age. No other variable, nothing else was changed. And she found that those who held a more positive view of aging, those who chose to focus on the benefits of aging, retiring from the demands of work, more time to learn, play, share wisdom, they actually aged better. Longitudinally, they were followed. Not only did they age better, they lived better and lived longer. So the scary thing is, when you really think about that, is that those that considered aging a negative thing had a shorter life expectancy. They expected bad things to happen, and more bad things did. So that was a very, I think, powerful study. Beyond, like the shake, aging is a very important thing in the lifespan, and certainly life expectancy is something to be taken very seriously. So they actually diminished their will to live, and they showed a reduction in cardiovascular function when exposed to the negative stereotypes. So their heart suffered, their quality of life suffered, and therefore some of them actually lived less. What does this all mean? Well, we've seen 4 different groups of studies, all leading us to the notion that choice does affect how we perceive stress and how we react to stress. But we all know, based on what I said to you at the beginning of the presentation, that stress does have some negative effects. Would we all agree? I mean, there are just some things that stress does that are very damaging. So there was a lot of evidence. I didn't have the time. It would have had to be an all-day presentation for me to go through all these studies with you. But I was able to summarize it for you. All of these studies are indicative that stress can be debilitating, and here's the evidence that we have. On the performance level, we know that extended and prolonged levels of stress affect absenteeism, people not coming into work, loss of productivity, cognitive impairment, loss of engagement, loss of focus. We talked about that. From a health perspective, stress affects the immune system. It causes heart disease. It can cause reproductive challenges, backaches, headaches. And in a more severe situation, it can contribute to depression, mental illness, and problems in our relationships with others. So stress has some debilitating factors. But stress has also been proven to enhance certain aspects of our life. And so these are also studies that have evidence around the very 3 buckets: performance, health, and well-being. As it relates to performance, all of these studies found that when people learn how to manage stress, it increases their brain processing, it improves their memory, and it helps them to focus better. From a health perspective, if you're able to overcome stress, you have a quicker recovery, meaning you bounce back faster. It enhances your immunity, and you become more physiologically tough, less likely to get sick. From a well-being standpoint, someone who endures stress and is able to basically bounce back from it, what we call resiliency, they develop more mental toughness. That's the ability to withstand, right? To overcome. They have deeper relationships and a greater appreciation for life. So you say to me, okay, Isabel, which way are we going to go? Is it debilitating or is it enhancing? This is what I tell you. The fact is, it's a paradox. It's both. In large quantities and ill-managed, it can definitely take a toll on you. But if properly handled, if managed, if you can master it by making some adjustments, it can actually enhance your life. But there's evidence that it is potentially damaging and potentially helpful depending on the choices that you make in your life. So I'm not arguing that one is stronger than the other. They're in a battle. And the only way that you're going to win the battle is if you decide that you're going to act on that and you're going to, in essence, handle the stress instead of letting the stress handle you. I don't know if this is going to work, but this was a very cool endeavor. Again, I thank so much the people from Stanford and Yale and Harvard who made this available to me. But they did a study that I wanted to share with you, and I do not know that it will deploy, but I'm going to try because I really worked on this very hard. These are 2 film clips that are happening that were shown to participants, and they were shown the 2 film clips at different times. The only reason why I attempted to put them both for you simultaneously is there's a lot of power when you can see them side by side. So what the exercise was actually was one group was shown a film. The film is identical, by the way. They're identical films, but the narrative on each of the clips is completely different. So the one on your left has narratives that go with the image, but the messages are all that stress is debilitating. The film on the right side of you is the same images, but with the narrative that stress is enhancing. And I will obviously share with you what the outcome was. I'm going to try I'm going to try, and it's not going to be easy, by the way, because I've done it, and I've done it a couple times, and I still find it hard. It's difficult to wrap your head around the two messages, okay? If it doesn't work, we'll stop. But you should know that they are timed to where you're looking at one, and within a few seconds, you're hearing the other. So you're not literally going to be hearing both. Okay, I did it so that you could actually see both, but I don't know that it'll work, okay? So bear with me. I'm glad it worked. Did you find it as interesting as I did? What a great job they did at Yale. Think about it. The work that went into creating these films, and the work around selecting different viewpoints and exposing the subjects to both. What I can tell you is they were measured on 3 different things. They were given the stress mindset measure, they were given the anxiety symptom questionnaire, and they were given the work performance scale. These are all measurements that were more to meet some of the scientific aspect, but I was very interested just in what happened with mindset. And not surprisingly, those who watched these videos portraying the enhancing nature of stress adapted and adopted the stress enhancing mindset. So they may have started with one, but when they saw the other, they chose the enhancing. It just tells you the power of choice. You're looking at the same information, but through 2 very different sets of views. So again, in summary, stress is debilitating and stress is enhancing. There's proof. We know that there's evidence. Many studies have been done. It's a matter of really how you react to it. I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, but I did wanted to give you some evidence. And so these are the correlational powers of all the studies, meaning that they were statistically significant. These were enough, obviously, to warrant publication. So these were not anecdotes. These were all serious experiments, and that continue to be underway at this time. Now I'm going to shift literally to the part that I hope is the takeaway for you. So you know now that you need to be aware if you're going to make any change, right? Any change, you have to be aware, you have to be in the present moment, you have to be focused. You then know that you have to learn what mindset is, understand its power. We looked at a lot of evidence. I don't know if it's compelling to you, but it was pretty compelling to me, that there's a lot of power in the mind. And now there's choice. So here are, in the least possible ways, I tried to summarize this, ways that I can shift our mindset. And it's a 3-step process, 1, 2, 3. I figured 3 was easy to remember, right? 3. 1 is to acknowledge. Acknowledge the stress. See it for what it is. And I'll tell you how to acknowledge, but it's basically those steps. Acknowledge it, welcome it, and utilize it, because it's going to keep showing up. Doesn't matter where you run, it's going to find you. So it's not about dodging it. It's not about changing jobs. It's not about, moving homes. It's not about buying a different car. Stress will follow you wherever you go. So what do I mean by step 1? Acknowledge. First, it's a 2-part thing. It's what is stressing you right now. I have some guidelines there for you. And what are your typical reactions? If you're aware and you acknowledge it, then you are in a better position to do something about it. A lot of people walk around not knowing. They know something's wrong, but they don't take the time to dig deep as to what it is that's affecting them. So my suggestion is to write it down. It's important to sometimes get it out of our heads. So acknowledge the stress. Here are some studies about the benefits of acknowledging stress. When we acknowledge stress, our brain is less reactive and much more proactive. We think more clearly and we're much more deliberate. So that's the plug for why you should acknowledge stress. The second step is to welcome it. In other words, if it's going to show up, embrace it, look at it in the eye and go, I see you. I recognize you. I know what you are. And then identify what it is behind it that actually makes it important. So I'll use a very simple example, a relational example of a couple that is arguing. And there's friction in the relationship. And so you have to ask yourself, why am I upset about this relationship? What is in this relationship that makes me so stressed out? So not just that you have the problem, but what is behind it? Well, this is because I love her very much, and I want this to work out. Understand the motive beyond the problem. I'm stressed about my marriage because I care about my wife. It just takes it to a very, very specific level. And then beyond welcoming it, and here are some of the plugs for why welcoming stress is helpful. When we welcome stress, it actually reduces our anxiety. It actually increases our control, and it gives us more positive energy. I know that it's hard to believe, but it is true. I don't know if you've ever been in a position where you had to make a decision, and you struggled over making the decision, and then when you finally made the decision, didn't immediately you feel some sense of relief that you didn't think could happen when you were stressed out about making the decision? So welcoming something actually eliminates the pressure. It doesn't add it. It actually decreases it. And then the last step is utilize it. What do I mean by utilize it? Well, if it's going to come, if it's going to hit you, it might as well teach you something, right? If it's going to be, either a broken marriage or a change in job or a change in city, or a change in occupation, or whether it means you're going to have a child or you're not going to have a child, whatever these things are going to be that are big in your life, utilize them to influence how you want to spend the quality of your life, how you want to live your life. So 2 steps, reflect and channel. Are your typical reactions facilitating your purpose? In other words, is what you're doing to cope making it better or making it worse? Sometimes we think we're fixing something and we're actually making it worse. And then expand means, what can you do to use this information, to use the stress to grow? Okay? There are some plugs, and there are a lot of studies on how utilizing stress is beneficial. For people who use stress better, we know that they're much more resilient. They perform better. They're happier. And they have much more belief in the possibilities. They're less fearful. So there is a real true benefit of utilizing stress, not just, trying to combat it. So in the spirit of 3, I'm calling it the 3-step integration. It's taking the welcome, the acknowledge, the welcome, and the utilize. And I'm going to call these anchors and signals. And I'm going to share a personal example so that hopefully it can stay with you, because there's a lot of information I've given you. Every day there are things we notice that are in our lives. They're in our lives, they're in our environment every day, and they could mean something to you. Maybe they mean something to you, maybe they don't. But I'm going to call them an anchor. When I teach mindfulness, I teach that breath is an anchor. It's something that brings me to myself. But I'm going to give you other examples. It could be the doorknob to your house when you leave the front door, or it could be the doorknob when you enter into your office, things to remind you, right? It could be the seatbelt in your car that reminds you that you care about your life. You're taking steps to protect your life. It could be nature, trees, the sky, something to anchor you to reality, to help you to remember that you can deal with stress. And then remember that there are some signals. I'm sure you've all felt them. I put a heartbeat there because that's usually the signal that I feel. I feel the palpitation in my heart, or I feel my breath, and I can also sense sometimes some sensory perceptions like sweating palms. Sometimes I can feel, pulse in my temple. There are many different triggers. So to flush it out, I put some out here for you. Look for some daily reminders, whether it's a stoplight that reminds you how you value your life when you get to a red stoplight, helps you to think. Like I said, walking outdoors, looking outside, maybe a picture of your family, something that reminds you of what really matters in your life, something that anchors you, because your daily reminders help you to remember that you are present, and you can only change things when you are present. Viktor Frankl, if you don't know who he is, was a very formative psychologist, and he said between stimulus and response, there's a space. So it is in that space that we have the power to choose our response. But if we do not pause, as in PAUSE, for those of us PAWS fans, PAWS, it is difficult to make a good choice because we're being reactive. So for me, my daily reminder is my mantra when I get in my car and I do my contemplation for the day, and I put my mindful meditation on the drive to FIU. That is where I put my intention to the world. I do that every day of my life. It may be 2 minutes, it may be 3 minutes. I've done a 20-minute one. And it helps me to remember that I can, and I will work with the stress that comes before me. And I always repeat this: I have enough space. I have enough space. What I mean by that is I can expand. I have room. I can do it. I said it today. I can expand. I have space. I will be better. I can talk. I will talk. By 12, I will, and here I am. Mindset. At the end of the day, it's the shower. That's why I have a photo of the shower. That's where I do my reflection for the day. That's where I do my aromatherapy. And that is where I assess how I was able to do with my intentions from the morning. And I start over the next day. I give this to you as a daily reminder that your life is important and stress will show up. But your mindset has everything to do with how you're going to be able to live your life. You know the stress signals, right? We know them all too well. The racing heart, the tension, the headaches, when we get short with our families, when we're unhappy, when we're stressed out at work, when we don't want to go out and we isolate, when we don't have any energy. But look at Aristotle. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act but a habit. That means you have to choose what to do and what to pay attention to. So, noticing. In summary, this was the best depiction, illustration that I could find to bring it all together. The world that we live in, this big environment. So there's things that happen, we're going to call that facts, right? And then it's the lens through which we see it, which is our interpretation, the mindset, our internal state. How am I? Where is my anchor? The behavior that I choose and the actions that I'll take will get me the results that I want. But the biggest piece is B, my mindset. That almost sets the tone for what it is that I'm going to accomplish. Living mindfully can be attained in these ways. First of all, understanding the paradox of stress. It's not good, it's not bad, it can be used. Honoring the struggle. So in other words, I know that for some of you, the stressors are far greater than others, depending on what's happening in your life. If you have someone who is terminally ill versus just picking which of the job offers that you have you're going to take. They're two different levels, right? Accepting the magnitude. Some of these things have deep magnitude. Remembering self-control, how to manage thyself, recognizing what you have control over and what you don't, practicing awareness, intentionally selecting healthy mindsets. You're the only one that can do that. Sometimes we copy other people and they're not necessarily very healthy people. Living meaningfully, rather, can be attained by, as I mentioned, establishing healthy anchors, recognizing the signal. So if you see the trigger, don't take the bait. Walk away. Breathe. Invest in yourself. Celebrate if you do something good. You can pat yourself on the back. You know how I pat myself on the back? I buy myself a different lavender soap every month. I'm a lavender freak, so every time that I feel like it's wearing out, I'm like, I'm going to go find a new lavender soap. I reinforce my self-care. Allow for setbacks. This will not always work. There will be things that are going to land you solidly on the ground. Big hits can really hurt. It's okay. Forgive yourself, shift, and start over. And remember that with active practice over time, you can actually make changes. And I'll leave you with this thought. I thought it was perfect. Looks like the fall. It's a tree, it's life, it's the brain, it's the neurotransmitters. It was a very sexy illustration. Our life is what our thoughts make of it. It's a very powerful notion. We didn't think we had that much power. Neuroscience is teaching us otherwise. There's a lot that we can do. We're not completely helpless to external stimuli. Thank you for your time. Thank you for coming. I hope that some of this was helpful. If any of you want to do personal work where you want to come to the office and meet with either myself or Dr. Reyes because you want to work on your mindsets or you want to refer someone, it's very simple. Just call us. It's free, it's confidential, and it's here to help you live a better life. Thank you for having me and for putting up with my voice and my feeling a little under the weather. I'll leave it open to Nathan if he wants any closing words or if there's any questions or remarks. I'm open to anything.
Well, thank you, Isabel. That was a fantastic presentation. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope you did too. So in closing, we will be doing next month a Work at Wells program around financial wellness. Everything in that regard for December is around holidays, dealing with the holidays, different aspects that can assist you. Starting December 4th, Isabel is going to be doing our mindfulness and meditation 3-week program. These signups are going to be on profdev.fiu.edu. Only 40 seats are available here at MMC and only 40 at BBC. There's going to be quite a bit of demand. The way that it's going to work is that for each one of the Tuesdays in those 3 weeks, it'll be from 12 to 1 working with Isabel on different aspects of mindfulness and meditation, working on from science all the way through into practice. Okay? And then after that, or actually during that, we're going to be doing our Strive for 5 competition. That's going to be open for everybody. I say competition just because people like that word, but that's not necessarily the challenge. The challenge is really against yourself and being more mindful and aware of what you are doing around the holidays in regards to drinkage of water, foods, mindfulness, meditation, exercise. There's all different components there, and that information is going to be coming out sometime this week. So make sure that you keep an eye out for that. And then my final, actually 3 questions. Does anybody remember the name of today's presentation? And don't shout them out, raise your hand. Yes. Get a leg up on stress. Yes. So you're going to get one of our polos. You'll be able to wear them on Fridays. All right. So then the next question. Does anybody know what department Isabel is in charge of? Office of Employee Assistance. Yes. All right. So the final question. Does anybody know where her office is? You already answered. GL.
Very good.
EL473. Very good. All right. So until next time, I want to thank you again. Keep an eye out for all of our listings. Our podcast just came out today. It's actually a podcast with Isabel, so you can check it out, PAWS on iTunes or on podcastgarden.com. Our newsletter came out today as well. So until then, thank you.
Take care.